this is going to be a new segment that we're going to be doing called Pitch Stop. In this segment, we're hoping to release it every week. We'll kind of make a pitch for a movie or a TV show or a video game or what have you that fits into one of our favorite franchises. First off, to show that, how much we understand and love these franchises, but also to show that, hopefully, there is still some creativity and new stories and ideas to be mined out of these franchises. We're hoping to do each month as a different franchise or topic or what have you, and we're very excited to see what everyone will do. We'll cycle through each week. Will be a different one of us making a pitch as to a story, and then we'll follow the pitch with all of us kind of discussing our thoughts on the pitch, what we liked, what our general thoughts are, maybe what we would have done had we been pitching something similar, just sort of something to show you what we think of it. With that being said, our topic for this month of March is the DCEU. We thought it would be fitting, given the release of the Snyder Cut of Justice League later this month. I will be pitching a standalone film for The Flash that will be taking place after Justice League and will kind of be the kickoff to what will lead up to our big crossover, which will be our final episode of Pitch Stop for the month. Get anything? Is that it? Sure. Alright, cool. Alright, so we'll start off with my pitch, and I'm going to be looking down at my phone because I like having something to read off of. We'll start off with Act 1. My idea for this was kind of that Superman, that Flash, is kind of like DC's Spider-Man, not just because in Justice League he was younger than a lot of the characters, but if you look at him, he's had a lot of tragedy in his life, just like Spider-Man has. But generally, Spider-Man and Flash aren't as angsty as other superheroes. They have a fair amount of drama in their lives, but they seem to have still remained hopeful and happy on top of all these things that have happened to them. On the DC and Marvel sides, you have heroes like Captain America or Superman who, sure, bad things have happened to them, like, hey, whole planet blowing up. But Superman doesn't really remember that. Sure, Captain America was orphaned, but it wasn't like his parents were murdered in front of him. They died of more natural causes later on in his life when he was still a young man, and it wasn't easy for him. But it wasn't like it was something that traumatized him. But both the Flash and Spider-Man have gone through great trauma and still have found ways to emotionally handle that trauma in a way that is still compelling, but healthy in a way that we can hopefully look to. And so this plot, I kind of took inspiration from the Sam Raimi Spider-Man trilogy, as well as some of the things that we do know about the current Flash movie. Instead of throwing those things out, I decided to kind of keep them and see how I would work within those limitations. So we start off in Act 1 with Barry being a superhero who's struggling with his life, kind of like Spider-Man at the beginning of Sam Raimi's Spider-Man 2. He's trying to balance his life as the Flash, his life as a student, his life as a forensic scientist who's trying to find evidence to prove his father's innocence. For those who don't know, his mother was killed in front of him by this mysterious, yellow force. And no cops would believe that this flash of yellow light had killed a woman, and so instead they believed that Barry's father had committed the murder, and he's serving a life sentence. Barry, because of this, was inspired to see things that, try and believe the impossible, find ways to always fight for the little guy. He's kind of a Boy Scout, like Superman, but Superman is the aw shucks, I was raised in a small town Boy Scout, which I love and adore. But Barry's a little different. He's the small, quiet kid who got beat up a lot in school and is now, kind of a nerdier guy, but not a lot of confidence, but he's very eager, very sincere. And so he's trying to balance all of this as well as his love life with this girl he just started dating, just a few weeks ago. Her name is Iris West. She was in the Snyder Cut of Justice League, and we'll be seeing that later this month, but her scenes were cut from the theatrical version of it, where, that would be where they meet. And so here, they've met each other, they've known each other, they've gone on 1 or 2 dates, but that's about it. I want to open up the movie, pretty early on with a confrontation with Captain Cold. One of the interesting things about The Flash and the relationship with his rogues gallery is that they have a friendly relationship, which is rare for a superhero. These villains, they have a rule about not killing. They are very sportsmanlike. They have, their own bar that they hang out and stuff. There was a time when Flash saw that one of his rogues, the Trickster, was there and he hadn't been taking his medications, he noticed. And so instead of carting him off to jail, he goes over to him, sits down, talks to him, has a drink with him, and helps him realize, hey man, you need some help. And so he just convinces him, hey, you want to turn yourself in after you're finished with your drinks, and Trickster agrees. That's the kind of relationship that Flash has with his rogues gallery. And so I wanted to explore that at the beginning of this film with Captain Cold, who will be his first rogue, and then those will expand in the other 2 movies that I won't be pitching here today, but I do have thoughts for how I would take them in the future. But anyways, this fight is going to be Captain Cold trying to rob a bank. I see Captain Cold being played by Manny Jacinto. He's the person, if you've seen The Good Place, he plays, why am I blanking on his name? He's the Asian guy who is not very smart, but really, really eager. Jason, that's his name. So Jason from The Good Place is going to be our Captain Cold. He's going to be robbing a bank, and after the fight, Flash is going to, tie him up with zip ties and drop him off at a police station. But instead of just running off, they're going to have a quick conversation where Captain Cold says, oh man, I really thought I was going to get away this time. So, same time next Monday? And Flash is going to say, look, I don't know, man. I've got a date, and, can we do a different day? And he says, okay, yeah, cool, man, good for you. Would Thursday work better? Yeah, I can do Thursday. And they have this exchange where he's like, thanks, man, I'm really nervous about this date. This honestly helps me a lot. He says, you've got this, man, you're a catch. So he zooms off, he's all happy, but in true superhero fashion, he can't stay happy long because he's going to have been late for class because he forgot, because he was battling Captain Cold. And so he's frustrated, and one of the things that I thought had a lot of potential and I kind of liked in Justice League was the relationship between Batman and between the Flash. I think that it could have been fleshed out better. Some of the dialogue was more than a little weird, but I think that there's a lot of good potential there. So we're going to have Flash run off to Bruce Wayne and try and speak to him, at his day job, so sneak into Wayne Tech and say hey, look man, I know you're super rich and stuff, so could you hire some snazzy lawyers and help me get my dad out of prison? And Bruce will kind of be frustrated and tell him hey, that's not how the legal system works. I mean, if you find evidence that can clear his name, we can get him out, but a lawyer isn't going to get him out. And, there's going to be a bit of an argument between them where Barry also wants his help as a hero. Bruce was able to teach him in the first movie, hey, just save the one person, and you kind of get him going in that. And he's like, hey, you really helped me a lot. Maybe you can keep on helping me. And Bruce, he doesn't really have time to do this. He doesn't really care to take on another sidekick. We've seen how his history with sidekick goes in these movies. And he tells him, look, I don't have time for you. I don't have time for your dad. I'm sorry to say that. It seems harsh, but, sometimes you just have to move on and try and live your life. And this is going to really tick off Barry, not just because, hey, he's not going to help him and his dad. He's going to say, oh yeah, you moved on from your parents? You moved on from Robin? So Bruce is going to be pretty ticked off and just tell him to get out of there. Doesn't want to see him anymore. So Barry's going to return to his home base, and in a scene that I want to mirror the Justice League scene almost exactly. He's going to walk into his home base, and sitting in his second favorite chair is a man in the shadows. Turns the lights on, and the man says, "Barry Allen, Bruce Wayne." But this isn't Ben Affleck's Bruce Wayne. This Bruce Wayne is a younger guy. It's going to be played by Armie Hammer. Now, for those of you who didn't know, Armie Hammer was actually going to be playing Bruce Wayne and Batman in a movie that was being made in, I believe, 2007. It was a Justice League movie being directed by George Miller. Unfortunately, the whole thing fell apart, but I thought that it would be a fun idea to cast him as Bruce Wayne in this movie. Because this is Bruce Wayne, it's just Bruce Wayne from another world. And in this moment, in this version of the scene, instead of revealing that he's Batman by throwing a batarang at Flash, in a moment where he's like, no, you're not Bruce Wayne, I know who you are, he's going to reveal that he has the Flash's powers by throwing a batarang, and then in slow motion, he's going to see it going towards him before Bruce runs at super speed and catches it right in front of him. This is a Bruce Wayne from another world, a world where he has all of the Flash's powers. He tells Barry that he has been having visions about a threat coming to his world, and in time, to all worlds. I want these scenes to also, again, because of the alternate dimensions and this being another Batman, I want these to very much mirror the nightmare scenes from Batman vs. Superman, and that we'll see in the Snyder Cut of Justice League. There's a machine on his world called the Mobius Chair, created by one of the new gods, that will allow him to stop this threat from continuing to destroy his world and other worlds. Now, the Mobius Chair in the comics is created by the new gods, but it's more just a really cool hover chair that lets you, teleport and stuff. And I'm kind of combining it with another machine in DC Comics called the Miracle Machine. If you sit on the Miracle Machine and you use it, you're able to basically do anything, rewrite reality however you want. There is a catch, though, that will be introduced later. But this Bruce doesn't tell Barry Allen that. He tells him, hey, I traveled to this world to meet a new Flash who could train him to use his powers. He hasn't had this super speed very long. And in exchange, he will teach Barry how to be a better crime fighter, a better, hand-to-hand combatant, a better detective, all of that. So together, once they're both ready, they will defeat the Guardian of the Mobius Chair and save the universe. This is everything that Barry thought he wanted, and so he agrees. So they start training, and pretty soon you figure out that this Bruce is actually even more aggressive than our Bruce Wayne, and it's starting to rub off on Barry. There's a point where they try to catch some sex traffickers, and this other Bruce tortures, which we've seen this Batman do, but then he also kills one of two lackeys that they were trying to get information out of, in an effort just to scare the other one enough. And he doesn't just, snap his neck or shoot him or something. He has been using, while he's not as capable with his super speed as the Flash, he has figured out a few tricks of his own. And one of his that he uses here is he speeds up time on one of these lackeys, causing him to age very painfully and almost instantly turns him into an old man and then into a corpse. I'm really hoping it will be a bit of a scary moment, considering the director, who I'll get to, is mostly known for his work in horror. So at this point, it's starting to rub off on Barry. He's very rude and quite mean to Captain Cold during their weekly fights. The low point of the second act, which we're in, is going to be when Barry botches a date with Iris. And she's not having it. She tells him that there's something different about him now. He's letting his personal tragedies twist him into something dark, and she won't be with him so long as he does that. But it's all going to be okay, at least as far as Barry is concerned, because this other Bruce tells Barry he thinks they're now ready to go get the Mobius Chair, which is in fact a lie. I want to show him having another vision, and he is terrified of what is going to come, so he says, okay, we need to go, stop this now. It's coming. It's too late. And so they go back to this other Bruce's dimension to get the Mobius Chair, where it will be revealed to be in the Fortress of Solitude, and the guardian of this Mobius Chair is his universe's Supergirl. Now, this Supergirl is quite angry with this Bruce in a way that makes it seem that in this universe, she's evil, and she's trying to stop him because maybe she has teamed up with this person. At least that's how Bruce is framing it to Barry. And in an effort to stop him from using the Mobius Chair, she uses her heat vision on it, but before her heat vision can get to it, all of them start fighting at super speed, with the two speedsters trying to get to and use the Mobius Chair before the heat vision reaches it and destroys it, with Supergirl trying to stop Barry and Bruce. Now, eventually Supergirl is defeated, and she's held back, but she reveals to Barry that this Bruce is evil, and it's not just her saying that. He's been consumed by his fear of these visions. He's been consumed by his grief after having lost Robin and other sidekicks, just like our Batman has. But in response, in retaliation, he killed their Barry Allen and stole his speed. She tells Barry that nobody can use the Mobius Chair because of the focus needed to use it. One thought out of place could permanently rewrite reality for the worse. Suddenly, something that was the answer to all their questions is something that is guaranteed to doom them all with how erratic and emotional this Bruce is acting. And so now, Supergirl and Barry have to team up and stop Bruce from using the Mobius Chair moments before it is destroyed. An emotional moment for Bruce because he's consumed by his grief and his fear of what is to come, and an emotional moment for Barry because he knows with this, he could bring his mother back, he could save his father, all of these things, and Barry has to give it up for the greater good. And so here at the end, Supergirl and Barry banish this other Bruce, known as the Red Death, to the Phantom Zone, and he promises that he will return. Barry returns to his homeworld, saddened by the loss of this person that was his mentor, somebody that he had come to view as a friend, almost as a brother. He visits his mother's grave where Iris finds him. She tells him why she fell in love with him, because despite the world giving him 1,000 reasons to be angry and cruel, he was still kind and hopeful. And, have a little fun, cute moment of, wait, did you just say love? And she says, no, not at all. And just, playing hard to get with him, implying that, yes, she does love him and he does love her, but we'll wait to explore their relationship more in the next film, which I want to focus on, the love that you have for another person romantically, as well as the love that parents have for children and children have for parents. And so the film ends with Barry resolving to be a symbol of hope for everyone. I want a mid-credit scene where Barry goes back to his base and is visited by another Batman, this time an older Bruce, played by Michael Keaton. This older Bruce gives him a new suit and tells him that he's been watching him for some time and is impressed with how he handled the Red Death. He says he's here to help this world survive the threat that is to come. He's kind of being the Nick Fury of these movies, but on a dimensional level rather than trying to protect from aliens or threats of this world. And then in the final end credit scene, we visit Red Death in the Phantom Zone where he has spent an undetermined amount of time, but clearly quite a bit, and he's on the verge of madness. He is then visited by an otherworldly force, something truly demonic, who we know as the Bat God Barbados, who tells him that he will free him if he acts as his forerunner, and then he will spare his world in return. And that's it. That's the end.
Okay, so we had to switch cameras because our camera died, but now this is the rest of us. I'm going to finish the pitch, which is mostly just the cast and crew for the film. I tried to keep everyone that we know is cast or already working on this film, and then just fill in the few slots that were left. So playing the Flash, Barry Allen, we have Ezra Miller. Supergirl is being played by Sasha Kaije. Henry Allen, the Flash's father, played by Billy Crudup. We have Ben Affleck back as Bruce Wayne. We have Michael Keaton as Bruce Wayne. We have Armie Hammer as our evil villain, Bruce Wayne. We're going to have Adam Brody as the other Barry Allen Flash that he kills in a flashback. He was going to play the Flash in the Justice League movie that they were both going to be in. We have Kiersey Clemens as Iris West. We have Manny Jacinto as Leonard Snart, a.k.a. Captain Cold. And we have Jack Quaid as August Hart, who is one of Barry's co-workers on the forensics team. And he will be playing a larger role specifically in the third movie that I have in mind. As far as the crew, I have director Andy Muschietti. We already know he will be directing it. He's most well known for directing the It films, as well as a smaller movie called Mama. And then for cinematographer, I chose Fabian Wagner. I think that's how you say his name. I'm not sure. He's a cinematographer famous for his work on Sherlock Season 2. He did all of Sherlock Season 2. And then quite a few episodes of Game of Thrones. And he also was the cinematographer for Zack Snyder's version of the Justice League. And so I thought that would be a good way to have some sort of visual continuity. And then for the composer, I chose John Powell. He's best known for, he did the first 2 Kung Fu Panda movies, he did the 3 How to Train Your Dragon movies, and he did Solo, a Star Wars story. So yeah, that's the cast and crew I had in mind for this movie.
Quite extensive.
Yeah, it does sound like a pretty good dream team there. Good setup there. I also like the setup for the story. I always enjoyed Flashpoint, and so seeing that multi-dimensions in a Flash movie is always a good starter for me. It's something that really drives the character as well as, make the DC universe a little more expansive as well.
And not to mention that not many people have ever thought about doing a movie side of it also. That'd be kind of cool to see.
Right. I thought about doing Flashpoint for the first one, but I figured it would be better to save that for later when more DC stuff has been established, so you can see how backwards and upside down it is, as well as just to give you more. As much as I love Flashpoint, it is a very wacky and weird story. So I figured that alternate dimensions would be a good way to tip your toe into that kind of storytelling.
What I really liked about the pitch was something that stood out to me was sort of the camaraderie that was between the Flash and his villains. For instance, that scene that Jed talked about with Captain Cold, where he's like, "Hey, can I, beat you up later?" Basically, he's like, "Oh yeah, good luck on your date." I was like, that would be something that's pretty fresh for superheroes and their villains, because it's either Lex Luthor and Superman, and they're at odds and they're always fighting or trying to kill each other, sort of thing. But with the Flash, it's more like, "Hey, I understand. I'll rob this bank later. I'll wait for you. Consider it." So I really like that. I found that humorous and good for the first part of the movie, because then in the second half of the movie, you've got a lot of dark stuff going on, a lot of weird stuff going on. So I was like, wow, that's a good way to have some levity.
Yeah, no, absolutely. In fact, it made me think of Harry the Platypus and Dr. Doofenshmirtz, just kind of that relationship where, they know that the other's going to do something that's going to annoy each other, but, at the end of the day, they'd be willing to share some exotic cheese or pie or whatever. They're still frenemies.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Go ahead.
Sorry. I kind of like when you brought in how the Batman kind of has Flash powers. I was like, hey, that's a cool twist of Batman. I mean...
Yeah. There was a villain that was introduced in the comics, I think, 2 years ago. And, you think about how scary Batman is as a good guy with no powers. You imagine how scary he would be if he had superpowers and then he used them for bad instead of good.
Ra's al Ghul would be proud.
Yes, he would.
Well, cool. Any other comments? Warner Brothers, if you want this to happen, well,
Money.
We pitched it. You owe us.
Yeah.
Give us the money.
Yeah, they're. I don't know if they've started filming yet, but they will start. If not, they will start filming soon. So they've already got a story, and I'm sure it sounds nothing like what I just pitched.
Yeah. It never really does. And you just don't know what's going to happen, especially with this idea of reintroducing the Snyder Cut.
Right.
What's continuity. Some things we do. We know Joker film and the Batman by Matt Reeves, but as far as, where's the actual continuity within the DCEU, it could be really anywhere at this point.
Which hopefully will be reset in the future via Flashpoint or a Crisis on Infinite Earths or something. But we'll see.
I had one question about the pitch. I'm not familiar with the character at the very end. the cosmic person.
Yes, Barbados. So he was also just introduced a few years ago. He is kind of like the god of bats. He's like this demon who's been in existence since the beginning of the universe, and he's kind of been inspiring and recruiting different versions of Batman throughout all these different worlds. And he's kind of creating a dream team of evil Batmans, if you will, in the comics to try and take down our universe's Batman and other different universes. One of the reasons why they are after our universe and our Batman in particular is because our Batman here is kind of the prime one. He's like the most Batman of all of them. But they also view him as the least of all of them because he isn't, as willing to go as far as the rest of them are.
Can you imagine
So
being
he's
called
basically a
the
wild
most
card.
Batman?
Yeah. Yeah, he's like if Galactus and Trigon had a baby and he was raised by an evil Batman.
All right.
That's an exciting villain.
Yeah, I figured, since we know that DC is going to be telling a big New Gods storyline with like Darkseid and stuff like that, maybe it could be fun to have our Age of Ultron, our big crossover in the middle that doesn't really connect to them, be something on a different level, but also be built up more than Ultron was. Because as much as I liked Ultron, it kind of just popped up in a movie and then hasn't been important afterwards. So it'd be like if they started planting the seeds for Ultron in like Iron Man 3, and then it's okay to be done with him after Age of Ultron because you're building towards Thanos. But this wouldn't be like the big end game, that's Darkseid, but this is a fun thing to be building up to for a crossover.
I do like my crossovers.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
Any other comments? Any other thoughts?
No, it was good to clarify that because I believe I'm next as far as the pitch goes. And I had some ideas, and I just wanted to make sure that it could be something that I could do in order for everything to sort of work together. And sounds like it to me. So.
Cool.
Sweet.
Very cool.
Thank you for joining us at Pitch Stop. We're going to be doing this as a weekly thing, and each month has a theme. So stay tuned for next week when we have our next Pitch Stop.